Hi, Gail.
Hello.
Hi. So let's.
Oh, wait a second. I have you guys on
Oh, you
headphones
can
there.
hear us?
Hi.
We can hear you. You can hear
I
us now?
still can't hear anyone.
Oh. Keep trying. I'll just ramble on until you say you can hear me.
But I might have to rejoin. Oh wait, no, I can hear people now.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I don't know. My headphones weren't
Okay,
working. Sometimes it freezes when I plug and unplug the headset.
great. And Scott, can we hear you?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I can hear you, and I
Okay.
guess you can hear me. So
Good.
I was doing other things while I was kind of waiting for things to start.
So let's do a roll call. Gordon might be a couple minutes late. I think he intended to go to the volunteer reception, which is tonight. Had I kind of known that,
I'm going to be the clerk.
Yeah.
We devised a little schemola here where we're going to try and have me be the clerk, and then at the end of this, we're going to prove the minutes that I'm capturing and try to do it live.
Assuming we agree that we don't need to meet anymore, that would be a nice thing to wrap up with. Okay, so this is the June 16th, Thursday, June 16th meeting of the Fiber Broadband Completion Task Force. I'm Mark Howell, and I'll just check the roll. Gordon Brockway has not joined yet. Scott Hopkinson.
Here.
David Hessel.
Here.
And Gail Heyer.
Here.
Okay, so we can get started. It's 6:37. All right, and Scott, we don't need to share the screen right yet, I don't think. Okay, good. Okay. So obviously we were just about to talk about minutes, and there are a couple of meetings that we do not have sets for yet, unfortunately, and that's the March 24th meeting and the public forum, which was April 14th. So we'll work on getting those produced, and I will find out whether there's any method by which we could, sort of indicate approval of those outside of having another meeting. But that's kind of where we stand on that. Scott did just this afternoon send out a set for April 21st, and I believe right after the last meeting, which was June 1st, he sent out a set of those minutes. So the other thing I'll just mention regarding minutes is I did just send over to the town clerk the vast majority of the minutes that we've already approved to get them posted on the website. There's a couple of sets, and Gail, I'm going to be in touch with you and Gordon when he joins with you, just to make sure that I actually have the final document to turn it into a PDF. So there's a few, but I worked with Scott first to sort of get caught up on all of his, because he's been our most
prolific clerk.
Prolific, that's the word I was stumbling over. Thank you. Okay, so that puts us in pretty good shape.
Do you want to present that spreadsheet so people can kind of get a sense?
Yeah, so I can do that. Yeah, so just these are just ones that weren't already posted to the town website. So is that big enough on the screen for you guys?
Yeah, you might want to scroll left just slightly.
Yeah. So well, the meeting date is just there. So
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
the finals there. And anything that I listed as posting is already sent in with the email. So in some of these, I think I may just be in possession of it, but didn't quite put my hands on it. But meetings of February 10 and 17. The the March 2nd ones looked a little funny. March 9th, which were reviewed and approved. I think that I actually do have those. I just need to clean up the PDF a little bit. And the 31st, we don't, this one, April 13th, I had a folder for it just because we were presenting to the light board, but actually we didn't have a meeting then. So it doesn't need to be done. The public forum, we're still pending, and we're about to look at April 21st.
And what we concluded about the public forum is it was probably recorded, so somehow we can transcribe the recording, and because we were all in the meeting room that day.
We weren't really taking notes, so that's why. Like I said, we approved May 26th at the last meeting, so we basically have the 21st and the 1st to look at, and we'll try to produce something for today. Okay. All right.
So Mark, are you going to reach out to us separately about?
Yeah, let me just double check what, I'll let you know what I need.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that, or I don't mind, I could also send this list, but there's really just a couple, and I think maybe I have them. I just want to double check that I have the absolute final.
Okay, yeah, a lot of times you would take the lead on screen sharing and editing during the meeting.
Yeah, and that's where I haven't had time to go back and review the recordings to all check it. In some places, I think I moved on without making a proper note, so I just want to make sure. Great, but it's a lot of progress, and I'm gonna, if at all possible, I'm working on this for tomorrow, kind of thing. So we'll get it out of the way and done. Okay, let's take a look at, so April 21st, if it's okay with you guys to sort of review these on the fly and look at them, then that's what I would propose we do, so that we can kind of dispense with that. It was.
We want to discuss if there's anything else that we need to cover in the meeting, other than minutes stuff, since we're kind of in closeout mode.
Okay, so just from the chair's report perspective, we can talk a little bit about the June 13th select board meeting. As we mentioned the last meeting, July 13, which is a Wednesday morning, is the next opportunity to meet with the light board. I noticed that some of them were on the select board meeting, and I don't anticipate presenting anything. That's past our charge date anyway, but we can always go as citizens and talk about what we did. The report's gone to the town manager, it's gone to the select board, that's where it needed to go. So talking to the light board is just a matter of background, so we can negotiate, and I'm happy to communicate with you guys about what to say to them. Does anybody have any additional thoughts about that?
No. Mark, you want me to share my letter from Jason, or we want me to wait to the end?
Let's do that. Well, you know the content, so when do you think it would be best? Okay, let's do the minutes, and then we can get into, because I think that falls under discussion of any feedback on final report, doesn't it? Okay, great. So Scott, why don't you share out the April 21st minutes, and let's just take a look.
Hey, give me a second.
I'm going to admit that
421. All right. All right. These are the most recent ones.
okay. It looks like everybody was there. I'm just going to go back to my notes for that meeting. Scott was clerk. We approved the April 7th minutes. Looks like we did
I'm just going to scroll through it slowly in case somebody notices something they'd like to talk about.
Yeah, let me.
So a typo, that's enhance.
Yeah.
Let me go back.
Mhm.
And oh, there, down. Sorry.
The red underline.
Mark does think we should enhance, I believe,
Yeah.
enhance. And chase. I didn't know that in chase is a word. That's interesting.
It's not 5 letters, so I don't worry about it.
Yeah. I was stumped this morning.
I still haven't got it.
And then it does think.
Yeah.
Earlier in that sentence.
Yeah, the word thing should be thing. Right.
And I had a comment, actually, let's see. Mine is on page 6, which is the next page, I guess. So it was where Gordon says, one of the frustrations because of the backlog and priority of easiest cases first to get to profitability.
So that was what it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I guess my kind of concern was,
Yeah,
are we, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Are we saying that the broadband is currently not profitable? Is that what we're saying here?
No, well, I think what's said here, which is the focus from the beginning of the business was to get to profitability.
Mhm.
The second part of that was, are we profitable or not? That's actually a separate question in my particular mind. And
Okay.
I actually don't know the answer to that
Oh,
because
I see. Okay. So
yeah,
it should be
it
made
was just
clear that that I don't know.
The gist of
Making
Gordon's
it-
comment here, though, is really that he's suggesting that, reading the second sentence, because the organization doesn't have the knowledge in a complex MDU. In other
Mhm.
words, it hasn't attempted these more complicated, so it doesn't have a lot of experience to draw on.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess the bit about getting to profitability is not really relevant to his point. His point being
Yeah.
the first cases that were attempted were easiest, right?
Yeah, and may not be representative of some of the work that's left, I think was the gist of the comment, if I remember it correctly. Yeah. Yeah, so we were talking about ways to, potentially understand cost, I think, for some of these more complicated situations that haven't been addressed.
something along those lines.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess I just didn't like the part about to get to profitability, like that's saying that we're not there yet, which maybe we're not sure, but I just didn't want to call attention to that. Because
I'm going to
not
put a
not sure
note.
that's what we're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
So,
Repay.
Repay the loans.
Great.
along that line. Is that okay? Well, let me accept that so it's easier to read.
Yeah, I guess I just don't like the to get to profitability being in that first sentence.
Mhm.
Priority of easy cases first, period. I mean, that was the priority, you know.
Yeah.
And then you
Sorry,
say,
what say, tell me what edit you want?
yeah, so one of the frustrations because of the backlog and priority of easiest cases first, period.
Okay,
You know, the point is not about profitability. The point is that it's frustrating because of the backlog and the priority of easiest cases first. Like they haven't gotten to the more difficult, complex situations.
okay. Yeah, I think I recall Gordon making that comment and kind of
I sure
judged.
don't. You got a better memory than me.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Anything else? Or so you're good with that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to mention just clear, and I made it sure it was clear here, that after the fact, I reached out to Jason and asked him if he wanted to provide his notes as part of this section, because I took furious notes, but there was a lot to it. And so he agreed to do so. And I inserted them here.
Yeah, because he was basically reading from them when he was doing that. So I think that's appropriate.
Okay, as long as I don't recall all the details, but as long as he feels confident that those things were all said,
Mhm.
you know, that's a good way to incorporate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I actually, when Mark and I went over this earlier today, I had written a bunch of notes of my own and marked them in red to come back to him. And then we had this conversation about just taking his notes because it was clear that he was reading from them, and then we
Okay.
agreed to do that. So.
Yeah.
And then the rest is comments and discussion, and then motion to adjourn.
Okay, and just good. So if you guys are comfortable with that, do you want to approve the April 21st minutes as revised?
I move we approve the April 21st minutes as revised.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Yeah, no, I'm just, thank you. For some reason, I've managed to bury my notes, so I'm gonna have to find them, but that was David.
So the 21st or 22nd, I just had it up.
April 21.
Okay. So who motioned and who seconded?
David
David,
motion,
yeah.
Dale second.
So this is today's minutes. I'm just marking them up.
I
Okay,
have too many
vote.
sheets of paper on mine. Okay,
And Gordon is not present. Do you want me to do the roll call while you're walking
oh, we already did that.
for review those minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry, no.
No, we didn't.
Go ahead, yeah, so Gordon's
So-
not here. Scott? how do you
Aye.
vote? David, how do you vote?
Aye.
Gail
I
and Mark, aye.
Okay. It's in the books. All right, and I marked that as final. Do we have another one we need to review?
I think you sent June 1st, right after the meeting last week.
I did.
So have folks had a chance to look at those? I think they were fairly straightforward.
which
Talked about the slides mostly. And
which
the,
minutes were these?
June 1st, so it'd be
Oh, I
Um,
see. Yeah, okay.
I sent them out at 8:23. The
Yeah, I
night of the
actually
first.
sent some comments on those on June 2nd.
Oh, okay.
You want to pull those up, Scott? No.
Yeah, you'll have to give me a minute because I'm gonna have to go to my email and find them.
Okay. That's fine.
Sorry, I've just been a little flat out.
I
So
think I sent them to you. Let's still check.
no doubt you did. I just.
I did, yeah. Something on June 2nd at 9:20.
Yep, found them. Okay. Give me a second to navigate to them. Okay, can you see the minutes there?
Mm-hmm.
These are the ones that came from Gail. So you made a correction here. You added something here, the length of time, a lot of the funds should be at least part of the size of the broadband budget relative to the town budget. Focusing on the positives. Cannot come with this program. As well as issue, lots of comments here. So it's interesting. You added a note here. This is kind of trips over something that's not related to the minutes. We can talk about it later, which is to whether the light board, now that the broadband doesn't report to the light plant, if it makes sense to have some other organization provide volunteer feedback. And I know that was one thing that didn't come into our recommendations. We thought about talking about that. And at this point, I think the horse has left the barn, but that's something that we, as an individual, we might make a comment to the select board at some point about that. So
Yeah.
I didn't see anything that and had any huge objections to accepting here.
There's just in the very beginning, there's a whole bunch of sentences, words that need spaces. You could scroll a little bit, Scott. And I'll tell you when you hit it. Right there on that whole line of the length of time allocated. We start where should at least be proportional, at least on my screen. Where it says presentation should at least be proportional. On my screen, it's showing up as there's a lack of spaces.
Yeah, I think that's a Apple Mac thingy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it looks pretty normal here.
Okay.
Since I already have, this is yet another version, I'm just gonna, for the purposes of, I'm just gonna accept all the changes so you can see what it looks like in its finished
Okay.
form.
Thank you.
It does look normal to me.
Okay, great.
The
Okay.
financial was misspelled there.
Oops. Ah. So let me see here. How to get out of this? Go back to where I was. Financial situation, review, accept. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Sorry for the jumping around. It was a little weird.
And
Okay.
Gail, did you get a chance to mention what changes you were, or they were mostly?
Sorry, are you talking to me, Mark?
Did you have anything you wanted to actually highlight about the changes you were suggesting? Or were
Oh, let me just go back. I'm looking at them on my own screen. Well, I mean, there's one thing which, I think we agree. Toward the end, I said that Scott's topic sentence was discussion of general financial situation reporting. And then I wrote, there was consensus that the financial statements of the broadband operation should be accurate going backward to the beginning of the enterprise and forward.
Yeah.
I felt a little funny saying there was consensus, but I think there was. So, I don't think that was.
This is
wanna
the
make sure
sentence she's talking
everyone
about.
agrees with that.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Me
Yeah.
too. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm ready to move that these be accepted as edited.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Good, thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, Scott,
Aye.
David,
I,
Gail,
Aye.
and myself, I. By the way,
Okay, so wait a
Gordon-
minute. I'm sorry. I'm playing catch up because I was doing two
Oh,
things at once.
that's
I
okay.
made the motion and who seconded it?
David did.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, Gordon had texted me and he got delayed by something to do with work, so.
Okay, so we now completed April 21st and June 1st minutes.
Okay, so this is probably a good time for your letter from Jason. David.
let me see if I can screen share,
Okay,
which I'm not good at.
It is a Mac after
Wow,
all.
that was very seamless, David. Good job.
clean to me.
Now, let's see. Of course, it won't do it. I've done
No,
this.
we're seeing it.
We're
Are you seeing it?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hi,
Full
David.
screen.
Hi, David. I've been speaking to our team.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay, so I got this from Jason, and oh shoot, hold on for a second. Are you still seeing it?
No.
No, because you switched away from. There it
Now we
is.
see it. No, no.
Okay. So I just got this from Jason. I just told him I was the contact. As you would obviously imagine, I'm clueless as to what he's referring to. I was told by Mary Hartman, who's now on the select board, that, and I'm not sure what she meant, that there's loosening of 5G position on the town. I'm not sure if Jason's referring to 5G or not. So he just sent me a note this afternoon that he's headed on vacation at the end of the month, and he's going to contact me when he gets back.
Okay.
So that's all I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, I think that, generally, to my way of thinking, that represents some, positive options. I think that in general, the town needs to think a little bit more broadly, and certainly it seemed that there was a good reception to the notion of things like, not burying the fiber as deeply or potentially directly burying the fiber instead of putting it in conduit. Those are all less expensive ways of, installing this stuff, which is clearly not dangerous in the same way that, electric service is dangerous.
Yep.
There's a risk reward, obviously, if you don't protect the fiber quite as well as you might have by putting it in pipe. There's a little bit of an enhanced risk that it gets broken someday, but the benefit is it's much less expensive to do and faster.
Yep. So I'll even if the committee may be disbanded, I'll certainly keep all of you up to date as I hear from him.
By the way, just so you know, I've incorporated that email in our minutes
Yeah, great.
by grabbing it off the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things that sort of bothers me from like a structural perspective or something, is, Comcast, if someone wants Comcast internet, they just go and they put it, wherever. And if the town wants, if someone wants fiber, there's all these rules and, procedures that should be followed. And that's, I don't know, like Mark said, this is not a dangerous wiring situation. It's glass fibers. So it pays to be a little more,
Mhm.
I don't know, creative. I don't know. I mean, it just seems really unfair that Comcast can go in and do this right away. And
it's electrical, by the way.
the coax.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's less than 40 volts. It's considered low voltage, which is like your doorbell, but it is electrical as opposed to just purely fiber.
Yeah. So
Gordon, I made a note that you joined at 7:05, by the way. Just
Yeah,
Hi.
hi, Gordon. If I can add to Gail's comment, we have occasional problems with the Comcast wiring around here, and on occasion, have seen them, they just kind of walk around the buildings and with their hands and they just kind of pull it up. It's not even very deeply, if at all, in some cases.
That was quite common back in the day.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I think that the reaction that we got to the suggestions that we were making and the note, so just to catch you up, Gordon, David shared an email from Jason, to him indicating that he's, I think, seeking some more information about the general infrastructure at Concord Green as a way of trying to consider other solutions than the very expensive conduit laying solution that's been on the table so far. So that's encouraging. I read the whole thing as being a little bit more flexibility and willingness to entertain different ideas, which was kind of what we were hoping for in the first place.
Yep.
Could anyone explain to me the town's position on 5G?
So
Well, I think what she might have been referring to is the town is working on a small cell policy, small cell / 5G policy.
Okay,
I don't know if I would call it loosening. It's not really up to the town. If the 5G wants to come, they can.
who is she? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, Mary Hartman. I guess I'm just repeating what David said. That
Yeah.
Mary spoke to David about this. So that might be what she's referring to. And I think the point of having a 5G policy is to be able to put some parameters around, the aesthetics and the placement and some of the, accepted ways that a municipality can weigh in on 5G infrastructure, where, the FCC, in my view, is bending to the will of the wireless companies and has given the most power to them and as little power as possible to the municipalities, because they are seen as, a thorn in the side of the people who want to put these wireless facilities up. So, but there are, and a lot of communities have 5G small cell policies that are, helpful in a lot of ways.
yeah. I
okay.
don't know how far the select board got, but on the agenda after us, I left the physical meeting and didn't get a chance to rejoin on Monday night, was a review of the proposed 5G facility, policy that the town was looking at. And
Yeah, they did.
goes through exactly the same. Did they approve that?
They didn't finally approve it. That Jason just reviewed the significant comments from a number of citizens. There were quite a few. So he reviewed those, and the select board, mostly Matt Johnson, talked about what they thought of those. And Jason, I think, said I don't know. I think he said, like, go back and redo it one more time and come back again, with a more final policy. That's
Okay.
where it was left.
Thanks, Gail.
Yeah. So, that there are a lot of people who think that fixed wireless may show up and, may be an alternative. And, there are some carriers that are trying to offer that. My technical opinion on that is approach with caution, because I think that often the capabilities are marketed to be beyond what they actually turn out to be.
Yeah, to second that, just an FYI, the signals, actually the higher frequency signals get blown around quite a bit wind wise, and the fall off of bandwidth is much more dramatic. In other words, the distance from one antenna to the next, the higher, when you get up to 4 and 5G, the rate at which their bandwidth falls off is more dramatic.
Mhm.
So you end up, I mean, they talk about maybe having a node on every streetlight. But then
There already
you
is,
still
more or
need,
less.
you still need a backhaul.
Yep. So our current fiber has
Our grid would be perfect for that backhaul.
it's already there. So our current grid attaches to the light array, the mesh Wi-Fi array that is on the street lamps. What, at 45 locations, Mark? Something like that? It's pretty high now.
80, but that's,
Oh.
there are 460 or some number like that poles. I actually had Jill Moonheron generate a map at one point, which, sort of assumed a 500-foot radius around every pole kind of thing to sort of say what that would look like. And it literally is hundreds of installations, which is why I've always kind of thought that it was highly likely to be cost prohibitive, except in certain real specific and dense areas. So I'm not optimistic that it's ever really going to show up, but maybe they'll invest in it.
Well, okay. Well, that's off subject at this point. Our report's done. I mean, maybe we should focus on what things we need to do.
Yeah, so it's just to we'll circle back to next steps, but does anybody want to make any comments or have any thoughts about the presentation to the select board that we did earlier this week? I appreciate it. I saw that most of you, I think, were either physically present or virtually present, and I appreciate that support.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to leave early, so I heard Mary's question, and then I heard part of Susan, no, wait, not Susan, somebody else's question.
Linda, or Henry.
Linda, yeah, it was Linda.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, what our response was and how it was received and kind of what next steps they might have.
What date was the select board presentation? I'm sorry, I was traveling.
The 13th.
13. Yeah, I mean, I was in virtually, and Mark, it was a very good presentation. I tried to read the their kind of facial responses as you were going through it, and the cameras switched back and forth, and then their questions. Mary's response, I know, was coming from the Concord Green survey. So she said, the residents had said no. That was kind of, I know what you were saying, but I couldn't get any read on, what their opinion was, except 1 second, there's a train going by here. I couldn't get a reading on what they really felt. It was like a thank you, great work, you worked hard, but I don't know what they're going to, I couldn't get a reading what they're going to do with it next.
Gordon?
I agree, David. And, I'd spoken, I think a number of us have spoke with Mary beforehand, last month or so or whatever. She did review the report, made some comments. I'd also spoken with Matt Johnson, and I say in both of those instances, what they had to say at the meeting was no different than what I've heard from them before, which I guess I'm not really that surprised because I haven't had any opportunities to speak with Matt Johnson to maybe try and move the needle or whatever. I just felt like as if we didn't move the needle, that if you pulled them 6 months ago and you pulled them after that presentation, their questions were really almost even like would have been known 6 months ago. And
very
they
good way
weren't
of letting it be.
as much responding to all of the information that we gave them.
I'll comment that particularly Mary's question, I thought was really aimed at the point that we were already making, which is that the investment model that a typical cable provider has, that is a very low initial investment for the subscriber, which is made up on the back end by the service provider, enables them to essentially offer to connect up anybody, whether it's a house or MDU or something, for little or no investment on the part of the homeowner, and therefore they accept it and come in. And we've been operating under a set of principles that's very different than that. And I thought that I was a little disappointed because I thought we were making it clear that what we were expecting was that Concord Light Broadband would begin to look carefully at whether or not it was able to also operate in, more like its competition in that sense, by investing to make connections and counting on the business return from those subscribers. I think the waters were significantly muddied, though, by the fact that Concord Light Broadband has accepted, at least for the time being, this notion that it's fairly deeply in debt in a way that nobody understood it was just 2 years ago. To be really blunt about it. And so I did feel like we were successful in calling attention to that fact and suggesting that it be reviewed. I didn't get a chance to mention this to you guys, but a week ago, last Friday, in other words, the business day before this meeting, I did have a chance to talk directly with the town manager about the findings, and she agreed to recontact the auditor and ask the auditor to really explain how they came to the conclusion that there was money being owed, and review that and conduct an internal review of it, at least as a starting point, because of the questions that we're asking. So that's not a complete re-audit of it, but I think it's an appropriate step to take, and I'm encouraged that they're going to take it.
That does, it kind of works out to something a little bit more than $1,000 per subscriber, right?
Oh yeah, you could look at it that way.
Look at it that way, and I'd be disappointed that we hadn't driven that down further by now, because we're still adding subscribers. We're only adding them like a few hundred a year, right? So having cleared out 2 loan tranches already, you'd think that we'd be being closer to being in the clear.
We haven't cleared out 2 loan tranches, even without the 1.9 million, according to the broadband light plant reports, which is what is included in our report. The still outstanding loan was around $835,000. I think maybe it was 935. It was in that range. It wasn't $1.9 million, but it certainly wasn't 0.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but
Yeah.
Mark and I discussed this. I'm not sure, Mark, that you passed around our email discussion. Through May of this year, they've only added a net gain of 21 subscribers.
Yeah.
So that's, that's kind of problematic.
I did have a chance to ask Jason Bulger about that, by the way. I forget whether this was before or after I spoke with you, but his response was interesting, and I think it goes to the point we've been making about marketing, is that the way they lose subscribers is people move out.
Okay.
Of the home where they're subscribing, but they don't follow up with the new resident of that home to try and get them to reconnect right away. So they're kind of bleeding out subscribers that they've already invested in by not basically every time somebody comes in for a switch of electric service, they should look and see, is this already a broadband account, and really have
Yeah.
that conversation with those people. Because if you're moving into Concord from, who knows where, why would you even think there was an option other than cable if somebody
Right.
doesn't actually mention it?
Yeah, that's goes right back to the issue of marketing 101.
So what
Really
Jason was
basic,
saying that he was planning to do about it, just to finish the thought, was they are going to, it may be too late now, but they're actually going to go back and look at those subscriber losses and say to some of these people who actually have fiber in their home and may not know it, wouldn't you like to subscribe to our alternative? By changing posture in there, they hopefully will start to see net gains. But I was a little surprised by that. But
Yeah.
Well, I
in
mean,
that, I'm just curious, in that particular case, did they think to propose that they waive the $150 connection fee if the damn ONT is sitting in the basement?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Gail,
No, this
what's your
seems-
comment?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I mean, the broadband operation has been, like, it's been short staffed for a while. They don't have a, I don't know, director or whatever, Greg Marcinek left. So, I mean, it's disappointing, but it's not like a complete shock. And I agree, I think Scott's point, like, I think it'd be great for them to waive the fees. I mean, I think,
Mhm.
yeah, anyway, I mean, I think that's,
Yeah,
Not-
it makes total sense to do something like that. And part of that is, and this is, I think, maybe to the broader point that we were starting to touch on about, who should watch this. That's one of those things that customer service at the light plant, which is still in the light plant, is best positioned to do, because they
Yeah.
see those move outs and move ins, and they get the final reads, and they have visibility to that. And it's pretty simple outbound marketing to say, to call that, or as soon as somebody shows up and says, I'm the new homeowner at, whatever it is, would you like some, can I get you some fries with that?
so, so let me just understand, Mark, if I can ask you. So they call up, so I move out, I get my final electricity bill, I get my final fiber bill.
They're all combined now, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay,
One bill for
Yeah.
all utilities.
okay, but now I'm the new resident. I call up CMLP. Does the customer service rep, and maybe I'm getting too far into the weeds, but does the customer service rep say, no, I should say not no, I shouldn't say no, when they pill up 30 Concord Green? Oh, yes, we'll hook up your electricity. And by the way, do you know that you have fiber optic already installed? Do they know that?
They can, it's easily available in the system, because there's the concept of a service address. So the
Okay.
address didn't change, 123 Main Street, if it has fiber in it, it still has fiber in it. Just because you move out and I move in doesn't make any difference. You can still
Okay.
see that.
So they can say, would you like fries with that?
Yeah, they can say that's we already have service, we can hook you up tomorrow, kind of thing. And I will say that informally, certainly, when in the early days, we did focus on that. As soon as we saw somebody was, calling us up and telling us we were leaving, we would try to make sure that we did get in there when the new person came up, usually to the desk, and said, I need to start my electric utility bill, because understand, with people moving into town, some of them have never even been in a town that had a municipal electric utility in the first place. It's all new to them. They expect Eversource or National Grid or something like that. And the first thing they do think of is, what's the cable company here?
Correct. So one more question, if I may.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand the next section. So Jason reports to the town manager,
Mhm.
correct? So how does he coordinate within the realm of his span of control, getting that person in customer service to trigger the question, would you like fries or that?
Mhm. Well, or fiber with that. It's just.
Fiber, I'm sorry.
fiber's different.
Yeah, now,
No, I
Mark
said
said
fry.
fries.
I
Mark
like
said
fries.
fries. I heard fries. Come on.
No, I said fries intentionally, because when
I
you're
know, I know.
McDonald's day, you order a cheeseburger.
You
would
know,
you like
it's,
fries with
they,
that?
the fact of the matter is they all sit in the same place. And the service orders that are processed through the integrated billing system that Scott mentioned, has that capability. And so that was.
So there
was-
is.
There's,
it sounds like
there's
different-
another easier way. I mean, if you want to really segregate it, every time they do an ad, so move drops ads are kind of the nature of phones and power, right? So most of them are drops and ads because people don't move within town very much.
No. 50% of the moves in Concord are within town.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah.
Well, so moves drops ads, they should just get that report and shove it over
Yeah.
to the broadband folks, and they should, because now that actually creates two opportunities. One is the new people moving into a place where it's already installed. That's the easy sell,
Yeah.
theoretically. But guess what? The person that just moved and had cable and had broadband, they're
Mhm.
likely to sign up for it again. So there's another trigger that they should be tracking.
And that often does occur, except for, I would rush to remind us that there are but if you move to certain neighborhoods or certain cul-de-sacs of a certain, you can discover that while you had Concord Light Broadband at your old address in Concord, you have a
Yeah. So I mean, that's
of
another
landing on
element
an
of it.
address that you don't get it, and people have expressed that frustration in the past.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand that. But David, your statistics surprised me. I didn't realize it was so high that 50%
didn't.
of the moves in
Actually,
Concord.
if I can just add or tell you, that's what Laurie Cadigan told me.
Yeah.
And she owns Barrett. I have one more question and I'll let go. So if I move into a resident that had fiber,
Mhm.
where am I in the queue to be turned on? Do I go to the back of the queue or to the front of the queue?
Well,
Alright.
that, again, we tended to at least informally prioritize that because it didn't take any time.
Right.
Or really, you didn't have to go get a contractor or pull new fiber or anything. You could just, usually it was basically an equipment drop off, like your cable box kind
Right.
of thing.
Okay.
Done. So that it's encouraging that Jason is now focused on that, and I think it's it says that he's been looking at things and beginning to understand how they
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
You have to have the technician. I think Gail put her finger on it when she mentioned there's been a lot of transition and some stitches may have been dropped in the way things were being done before that could get picked up. And I think that's why us calling out, they need to return to their growth ways. And so you're right, the new subscriber numbers didn't look that unhealthy, but if
Right.
they're, and Matt mentioned this in his comment, the churn looks unhealthy.
Right.
But if that's really just, there's a bunch of people now who have fiber in their house who aren't doing it. Unfortunately, once somebody signs up with the cable provider, they're usually locked in for a year or 2 years or something like that. So they're not that easy to get back. So it's a big, it has to be a priority to market that.
Okay.
Any other comments in general about the report?
Well, I just wanted to say, I just felt like we could have maybe tried to change people's minds a little bit more, but we blocked ourselves out from moving forward with, look, we spent most of this year that we worked together talking about the virtuous circle,
Mhm.
right? And then we shot it.
Yeah.
Right? We killed it. We said there is no virtual circle because we think that the debt is unsustainable
Mhm.
and that needs to get sorted out. And
Okay,
we decided this, we learned this or whatever, made this. I thought it was really quite a very strong right turn at the end of our effort. And if we could have just done things a little bit differently and focused on that earlier, then we wouldn't have been leaving it as a question mark that we're hoping someone else will take up and sort out. But we could have maybe sorted ourselves. Like I said, it's $1,000 per subscriber. If the ONT itself costs $1,500. And then you also have to build an enterprise.
50.
And that may be a reasonable level of debt. Look, I'm not trying to analyze it on the fly. It's,
Yeah, you're
Well-
saying numbers that aren't right. So
listen, Scott, you're always criticizing me. Just, just a second ago, you said I'm wrong. I never criticize you. I'm trying to express myself, all right? Just be patient with me, okay? I'm not perfect.
Thank you. So
Okay.
Gordon, I'm sorry if that was, and Scott, let's let
Scott,
Gordon have it.
Just, you were so critical of me. I don't know if it's because I used to sit on the board and that somehow I'm to blame for all this,
No,
but just please be a little bit more respectful. You use
Okay.
words against me all the time that it's like I even put into the minutes once you said Gordon Brockway was mistaken. Okay. It's like, let's not be personal.
okay. Gordon, I'm sorry if that has been uncomfortable for you. Scott, is there anything you want to say?
No.
Okay. So
So all
I
I'm trying
wanted
to
to
say is
return to the
we
point
had
you
an
were making.
opportunity to try and we could have, if we dealt with it a little bit earlier, maybe we would have understood the debt. We're hoping that it isn't a problem. Now
Mhm.
that we've raised this problem that's saying that, we've developed too much debt and we don't know how it happened, then we can't recommend heading down that virtuous circle.
Yeah.
So it's just a disappointment. If we could have just done it a little bit differently, maybe if we had a little bit more time earlier, we could have basically delivered a stronger message endorsing growth going forward. Because that growth could also be a solution to some of the questions that we have. Mary Hartman expressed to me earlier that she was unsure about the solidity of the finances of the broadband, and we didn't really answer it. So anyway, otherwise, I think we did a good job, and I believe that the staff can move forward.
I do share that disappointment, Gordon, in the sense that I think I've expressed it many times here. I do not really, I don't agree that it's likely that debt number is accurate. And so when you're dealing with information which is, potentially quite inaccurate, it's hard to know where to go. And so I do wish that had surfaced earlier and we'd been in a better position. I feel good about the fact that I think that it is going to get a much more detailed review. I'd like to think that particularly the light board, and I think when, certainly the comments I'll make at their July meeting will be very focused on, you guys need to figure this out and have very high levels of confidence that you're working with accurate numbers, because that is a problem. And you're right, it cratered the business case for future investment if it's accurate. And that's exactly what I said on Monday, because it does.
Yeah.
It really implies, if it turns out that is accurate, they're going to have to make some changes before they can go any further. And I'm actually pretty confident they're going to discover that it's not accurate.
I hope so.
In fact,
But they may not. I just don't know.
did they pull the 1,000,009 out of the air, or did they actually figure out that this was the commingling?
Well, the assertion is that there was a cash balance that needed to be paid. But, as anybody who ever has worked a budget or an expense plan knows, if, spreadsheets are spreadsheets. If you fail to add a column or, subtract it instead of add it, it's real easy for spreadsheets to tell you the wrong thing. They're only as good as the data
Right.
that goes into them.
Right.
And so my assertion all the way along has been that I was very close to that data. I was looking at it every year, and we were, I don't believe that we were running those kinds of negative cash flow balances, but that, it doesn't jibe with my understanding of what the business was, nor the way anybody was really behaving around that business.
Okay, so somehow somebody came up with that number.
Yeah, and it came up as a result of an audit. It was quickly accepted at a time when there was nobody actually doing the broadband manager job.
Right.
And, sort of in the early stages of the pandemic. And, I could think of all kinds of reasons why, a mistake might have been made there. So I
Yeah.
think we've called attention to it. We've raised the visibility to the highest levels that it can be raised at the town, and gotten a commitment from the town manager to review it. So I think I count that as a win.
Yep.
Yeah.
My other comment is that we've talked about Mary Hartman a lot. I worked with Mary for 7 years, at least 5 years. On the Concord, she was president of the Concord board and treasurer. She's a critical numbers person, and I cannot speak for her, but I know that her kind of viewpoint is that if the numbers don't work, and she's not going to be a fan. By the way, I just did a quick thing. If we have 2,200, 2,300 subscribers, and I don't remember the exact number, it does come to around $800 per subscriber for the 1.9 million. So Gordon's numbers are pretty close.
The numbers are actually a little under 1,600 subscribers, according to Jason's most recent report. I think it was 1,585 or some number like that.
Yeah.
So,
So that's-
it is a bit more than
Okay.
Yeah,
$1,000
a
per.
little bit more than
So,
1,000.
Be that as it may, I think that's the follow-up work that's going to be done. I wanted to, try and match our rule of about ending by 8 o'clock. And so we have the final report. The light board, as I understand it, will discuss the report at their July 13th meeting. I intend to be there and encourage you guys to do it too.
Will you send us a link for that?
Yes, it's already posted on the town.
It's posted already. Okay, great.
calendar, 7:30 in the morning, Wednesday, July 13th.
Thank you.
I don't know whether that's in person or virtual. I'm sure that it has a virtual option. So given that, and Gordon, we did do a lot with minutes before you joined, which I'll be happy to recap with you afterwards. But the question is, I don't know exactly what the process is for shutting down a task force, but should we take a vote, or at least come to a consensus that we are concluding our work? And with the exception of the March 24th, April 14th, and April 14th minutes, and the ones that we're hopefully going to talk about for this meeting in a couple of minutes, which remain to be approved. And of course, there are more sets than that need to be posted, but there have been a bunch posted in the last, or are being posted right now. That's that I think. Are we ready to wrap? Does anybody feel like there's anything else that we need to be doing?
I thought the only thing that I think kind of remains in my mind with the outlook of our work is the question that Terry asked, which is about whether the next step should contemplate changes in structure. I think she was basically asking whether or not she thought that telecom ought to have its own board. And I think that we've kind of demurred on that, and I'm actually okay leaving it like that. But I think that is one thing that as a group we could consider, and maybe you guys have opinions on that too. And if we do, we could talk about it and maybe offer some advice to whoever we think is appropriate.
So I would like to comment on that. This is actually something we discussed at the very beginning of our committee work as one possible recommendation.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I've noticed is that because the light board now, let me say it this way, Jason Bulger, the IT and the broadband business no longer reports to the light board director. that may be appropriate, that there's a separate organization that provides that guidance and insight. I had hoped to, but I did not have enough time to go back and listen to the most recent light board meetings to see how much time and energy was being delivered to the broadband business as a function of the light board meeting. Maybe you could comment on that particular point, Gordon. Do you feel over the last, let's say, 3 or 4 months that the light board is up their game in that regard? Because frankly, before it wasn't. It was often that there was nothing discussed on broadband and in the light board meeting.
Yeah.
And in fact, there may be certain issues that are cross purposes between the broadband and the light board in some respects. So
Yeah, good question. Thank you for that, Scott. I spoke with, I don't know if it's appropriate to relay a conversation, but let's just say with a town, with an important town employee who said that they would not really prefer not to have multiple boards that they'd have to attend every month. And you know, if you could have a employee not responsible for attending more than one board a month, then such a person wouldn't have such a complaint, right? So you know, there's the idea that a lot of this town folk residents or voter involvement in town government can become kind of a burden if it gets layered on so deep. But what I'm suggesting is that now that there's a direct, like you just said, Scott, now that there's a direct line of reporting, there actually would be a natural place for a corresponding board if you can find interest in town to actually seat the board. So if we think that they could find enough good, interested, dedicated people, then maybe you'd be okay. If there's a shortage of those sorts of people, then maybe you're better off leaving it the way it is. And I actually don't think that there's an unlimited supply of dedicated and qualified volunteers. So you just want to be careful. And I kind of pitched that question back to someone like the town manager or the select board or something to kind of kick it around. But I think it's a reasonable reason. And you know, you have every meeting, it's focused on broadband. You start to develop you know, familiarity with the issues and currency and so forth. And yeah, that could work out really well.
So
ironically, I would like to share something real quick, and then Gail, you want to go first, and then I'll share it.
Oh, thanks. No, just to I guess follow on. Gordon, what about the piece, like how is the light board responding to the broadband updates? Are they
right.
giving
That was
much like positive feedback, or hey, I think this is great, you should also do this? Or are they just like, oh yeah, Jason, great job, thank you,
It's
moving
more
on,
like that.
you know?
It's more like that. But the thing is that Jason does get you know, 10 minutes at least
Right.
in every meeting. So, which
Okay.
is a lot more than it was getting before.
Right.
And also in a formalized way. That's one of the things that we've done is we've actually, the director's report for electric and broadband are now actually sort of circulated as an email and ended up getting attached to the minutes. So there's actually some preparation that goes into it. And there's a little bit better continuity of a written record, which I think actually is helpful in terms of helping the board members engage and follow. So yeah, no, I do think, I think that Alice Kaufman vowed about a year ago to you know, make sure that broadband was on every agenda. And I think that that's likely to continue. The trouble is that they're dealing with a lot of other complicated stuff. And, you know, that if they really can't handle both, then maybe they should split it out.
God, did you
Gordon, I
have-
want to write down that you mentioned that the broadband gets about 10 minutes out of the board meeting. Is that okay?
I didn't mean to make that a global statement, but
All right, I'll take it out.
that
All right. Can I make my comment now?
Sure, go
Okay,
for it.
I want to just share something that I did being the data geek that I am, a little while ago, it turned out the green card system has some history to it, and I dug into it. These are the different committees that exist in the town at the different time stamps from 2018 to very recently. And it's interesting that up until February of this year, which is long after we existed, there was a cable advisory committee, which I had submitted myself to as a green card. It existed in the early days before the light plant had broadband. It languished and disappeared. And then in between April and February of this year, it disappeared altogether. At the same time, many other, the committees called that back a little bit, but I thought it was kind of interesting that this committee would have been the natural place for the broadband to land, frankly. And I just thought it was interesting. No conclusions drawn from it, other than I had repeatedly asked. I know that I asked our previous, second previous, not Stephen, but what was our previous town manager? Chris. I talked to Chris about the activity there and having that move forward, and it never went anywhere. So yeah, I mean, one of the other things to consider on this, perhaps in this discussion, is what is the nature and of some of these committees that do exist. And I've been there we are, by the way, so, but will disappear, I guess. But there are some in here that I find, well, I don't know. No comments. I guess it's an interesting list, and it was an interesting quick study that I did to look through this. Some of them are pretty important, like the 2229 is where the StarMet thing is. So that's pretty important. But it's not a lot of people know about it. But there are others like, well, anyway.
So on the point of next steps and whether or not we should, be making a recommendation, I was asked about that by the select board too, and my basic answer was, you're getting, it's clear that staff is spooling up the business metrics that you need. There's this question about the debt financing, which needs to be answered. And once you get the answers to those questions, it'll be a lot more clear what to do. And they seem to accept that. And I have some confidence that while they're getting all of that sorted, the light board probably is a good place to be there. But I also am aware, and Gordon's absolutely right, the light board has a pretty broad mandate, which is good because it means they've really got work to do. I get a little bit concerned that there's some of these task forces or some of these committees are so narrowly focused that you kind of wonder how they, sort of maintain any energy to keep on going. And that could be potentially be an issue with this. So I'm kind of comfortable with the notion, and I believe in citizen, activism on this, that, let's agree that we'll keep an eye on this. And, Gail already showed us how to get something done when it needs to get done. If citizens see a need for it to be done. And so I'm convinced that they should, we should be prepared to make another proposal, at an opportune time about whether or not there needs to be. If the light board isn't able to give it enough attention, then some of us that are interested in the topic might suggest something else. And keep an eye on it. That's kind of the way I'm leaning. David, do you have any comment on the subject?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking that we've given them, we've given the select board and I guess CMLP or Jason, excuse me, a significant amount of information, what I would describe as for them to take action. Some of it not as a particular compliment or best news they may want to hear. And at this point rather, I think we should, to the best of our ability, monitor what they're doing. If it requires, when I say us, I mean beyond us, but let's say us as the committee members, to come back and revisit it, great. But at this point, I think we should wait and see what happens. I'm personally, I think I come to this from a slightly different attitude. I've had no experience at all like the four of you have had in this process. I'm not optimistic about the future of broadband in the town. Because I don't think it can self-sustain unless there are significant changes made in it. But let's see what happens. I think the select board has everything they need to take action. And as does CMLP or Jason's doing, I think, a great job trying to turn this thing around. But I think we should, for lack of a better term, withdraw ourselves and let's see what they do with our report. It's clear to me that there's enough information here for them to take action. What they do with it, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I'm not in favor, as some have suggested, extending the committee. I think that's just, they have enough right now to do something.
We're not particularly well equipped to dig into the financial issue itself, which is one of the reasons why our recommendation was, if you need somebody to do that, go ask the financial audit board to do it. They're the right people to do that.
Right. I mean, you can say that. I mean, I have an MBA in finance, but I don't have an MBA in that kind of finance. I can look at the books and I can examine the books. I can tell you what's wrong, but I have no idea what the generally accepted principles of accounting are for town government.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I can tell you, oh yeah, here's something wrong, but I don't know what to do with it.
And we don't seem to have anybody that was in the room at the time that
Right.
that 1.8 thing happened.
Right.
So that's frustrating. I'd also say that I had a conversation with Brian or really after I left the board. Brian Folds is currently the chair of the Light Board, and I told him what the quandary was about the 1.877 borrowing, why that's a question, why it raises doubts about whether or not anybody over there really knew what they were doing, right? Were they controlling the amount of debt that was being taken on? Did they have the debt and not know about it? Just kind of the same thing. These are all problems that have to do with whether or not you actually are operating effectively and managing effectively. So I think he got all that. So again, that's a good place to for this work to be carried forward.
If I can add to that,
Realistically, it's just as much a problem for the electric side to be loaning out that much money as it is for the broadband side to be borrowing it.
Yeah,
without-
people should know.
David?
I was gonna say, I had a conversation with Brian, not about broadband, but I'm diverting here, but bear with me, about the way our EV charging is set up here at Concord Green. We have a charge point charger through a grant through CMLP. And Brian and I had a conversation about the way we're charged. We're not charged by usage, we're charged by time, which is a little bit different the way most EV charging works. And so Brian's going to look into that. But he did say to me, he said, with the new middle school, CMLP is going to be buried with that process. He said, so I don't know, you'll get it solved until the new middle school is built, which, and I get it. So I'm wondering how much diversion of energy, even though it's not a direct report anymore, CMLP's attention is going to be going elsewhere and not particularly be able to help solve the problem.
It's an interesting question to watch. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sensing a consensus that we're comfortable drawing to a close here.
Yeah.
So I think that's worthwhile. The proposal I would have at this point is that we, sit with that consensus. Scott has been working hard to try to produce minutes for this meeting that we could, sort of adjourn and at least say that we would represent these as approved minutes for our final meeting. We do have the issue of a couple of sets that are missing that we need to fix up. So I will be in contact with the town clerk about that and see if there's anything that we have to do or a way around that, and communicate with all of you regarding that particular topic tomorrow, Monday at the latest, depending on how fast I get an answer from them.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if you could post an unapproved set of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly attach draft minutes to meeting minutes that exist. The problem is that we can't attach draft minutes that don't exist to a meeting. And that's where we have two meetings that we literally don't have any drafts for yet. So that's the problem. So we might need to do something about that. But let me find out what the procedure is, and I'll be in touch with each of you about that. In the meantime, I really wanted to say thank you.
Thank
and,
you.
Appreciate the contributions that all of you have made, because it really has been my pleasure to work with each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott, do you want to put June
Now,
16th
I'm just
on
going
your-
to add one thing. I just, at the
Oh,
end of this, I've added, Mark indicated that the committee consensus was to not recommend follow-on committee at this time.
Yeah,
Is that-
and to conclude our activities at this point. And I'm noting, just for the record, that there are no members of the public here, so I'm not skipping public comments. I just don't have anybody to invite.
Right, I made a note of that. I've been making notes and
Yep.
about.
Right.
So how would you like me to do this? I can present it on the screen. I can email it to you at all, and we can walk through it real quick.
Why don't you both present, and we'll take a look, and unless anybody wants, and then email them sort of right after we're done.
Sure. So let me see here.
So
I'll walk you through it. So we called to order at 6:37, blah, 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 via Zoom.
yeah, so
Scribe
Gordon
secretary.
joined at 7:05. So why don't you just add that?
I did write, I wrote that down here somewhere.
Yeah, I was just saying up in the attendance, why don't you put it in parens joined at 7:05, just so that anybody who's, yeah, thank you. Great. I think that needs to go up a little higher.
Yeah, I'm just,
Oh,
actually,
yeah, there's no vote for that. Yeah,
this.
there you go. Thank you.
Okay, so 2 meetings minutes we discussed are missing. I had sent out the April 21st chair's report. We talked about the select board and the next light board opportunity. The report has gone to the select board and light board. We've then reviewed the minutes of the 21st.
So actually, wait,
And I didn't put the detail.
the report has gone to the select board and light board and town manager.
Yes. And it is also posted on the website at this point. There was a little hitch in that, but it got done by Monday.
Okay, so I'll take out this extra and make that a comma. Okay.
Okay.
Then we went through 2 sets of meetings, blah, blah, blah. We accepted both of those. We reviewed an email that David presented from Jason Belger. I've captured it here. Then I made the note about Jason, discussing how the Comcast cable is not deeply buried. We had a discussion about that. We had a discussion about the 5G. Gail, you talked about the aesthetics and accepted ways for municipality to weigh in on such systems. Discussion about fixed 5G and small cell. Mark mentioned that there were 460 light poles and gateways. We talked about the select board presentation. There's a typo. Making a similar investment as cable. So we talked about that. We talked about the loans and pay down. There was a discussion about the only net gain of 21 subscribers, and the discussion about Jason indicating that we both lose and gain subscribers, and that they're going to go back and see if they can capture some of those. And I wonder if they offered to waive the 150.
Scott, just at the very top of the second line, Jason Bulger's response was that they LOSE.
Thank you.
And that is, it says from May of this year, you mean from January through May? Is that what? that
January
is?
through May, yeah. That was right? It was 4.2 per month from January to May, net
Yeah.
gain.
Right.
That's surprising.
That's 21.
Mhm. But if you look at the monthly new ads, they were running 15, 17, 20,
Right.
numbers like that. So the problem is, departures.
That's a little, I would leave that out totally. Because it was a net gain.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
I'll
why-
leave it.
Additional information.
okay.
Jason indicated they will go back.
So Gordon, you talked about the virtuous circle and then the fact that we shot up. By the way, just as an aside, I went back and looked, and when I first tried to raise this issue, as early as March, I was trying to raise this issue with the team, but I'm not going to belabor that here.
I think we didn't really focus on, we didn't realize the 2 million anyway.
Well, I've known about that since before we started this committee, and it's just a matter of when we could get to that part of this.
Scott, Laurie Caddick is Barrett Realty, real estate.
I got her name.
There you go. Cadigan, you're right.
Yeah, I went and looked it up. That's because I had started with a K. I didn't get all the minutes. You rattle them off here, Mark. I didn't get them all written down here. Others possibly. So I just, frankly, I just let it go at this point.
Those are the ones that we still need to produce somehow. Okay.
Gordon, I don't know if you want me to put this in here. I don't know if that was David or Jason.
Yeah, it was in a private conversation, so I don't know if it belongs.
But you mentioned it in this meeting, so frankly, it's fair game, but I'll take it out if you want.
Well, I mean, I think the important point is that the citizen involvement can become a burden, so we want to be sensitive to that.
And attending board meetings can be a burden for staff. I mean,
Yeah, right. That's the specific point, like staff requirement, whatever, like the requirement that staff attends board meetings is burdensome.
That particular sentiment is not an unusual sentiment across.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my counterpoint to that is having just been involved in a smaller company, board meetings, prep for board meetings, senior management planning meetings, blah, blah, blah. That's a fairly light touch to pay for the level of those staff levels. They should expect it, frankly. But that's my personal opinion. And by the I just won't play for
hey, that chart that you gave us, Scott, was fascinating. And I'd offer one other thing about it, which is that there's an expectation in Concord that each person only be a member of one of these.
I've never seen that or heard that.
No, that is a common, yeah.
So you've heard that too, right?
That's policy.
Yeah.
In fact, the fact that you and Gordon are members of other boards was because the board was constituted to do that.
Yeah.
That's the only reason it happened.
I'm actually no longer part of the PEG access because I felt it was unable to affect changes that I thought it should make. So I just let my membership lapse.
Okay, well,
anyway.
All right, so that was
point being
useful.
there's a staffing issue. It gets spread thin. Yep. Okay.
Okay, and just continuing on with this.
Yeah. So we talked about this before. Mark said that we collectively watched the progress after the recommendations and significant information we gave them. news was not especially what I want to hear. If it requires us to come back to visit and support, then we can do so, I guess would be.
Okay,
David is not, and then I captured Dave was not about the broadband. This should actually, I don't know if that's, I'll leave it there. David recommended that we provided the information to take action, but let's see what they can do.
okay, and just right before the motion to adjourn.
Then we
Just
talked
quick-
about the discussion with Brian Folds.
Yeah.
And the bit
And-
about the middle thing, Mark. Okay.
Yeah, and just say no public attendees to comment or whatever. Just so that it's not like I skipped over it or refused to do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so we're gonna insert a approval of these minutes right in here.
so
Awesome.
Scott moves. Who wants the second?
I'll
Gail,
second. Maybe typing.
Looks like Gail wants a second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Gordon,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Gail,
Aye.
and myself, aye, thank you.
Okay, so now motion to adjourn. I move we adjourn.
Aye. Second.
Okay.
Gordon,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Gail,
Aye. Sorry.
sorry, and myself, aye. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Have a pleasant
Yeah.
evening.
Thank you. I learned a lot here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, everyone. I
Yeah, me
appreciate
too.
it.
I'm gonna
Thank
mark these as final and mail them out right now.
Okay.
Please do that, and I'll be in touch with a couple of you just to confirm that I have the latest and greatest versions of the ones that I haven't been able to send to the clerk yet. And that'll be today and tomorrow, so look out for that. And we'll get those last few ones posted and we'll be good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Night.
Bye.